going back and forth and interacting. So part of that energy, just because it's not contained in your brain anymore, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It might have just spread out, and part of it may have kind of stuck together in a way to the point where it still interacts in a certain way that was familiar to it within life, and it maybe even in form to be something that still possesses some sort of coherent thought or interaction ability. Is that a little better?
No,
Yeah.
that's a heck of a lot better. Yeah.
Okay.
So with all that being said, in the paranormal world, there's spirits that seem to have so much more energy than others. Like, how do you believe there's a certain way that they might retain more energy rather than just dissipating out? Because there's a lot of times we'll get more intelligent responses or stuff moves compared to other times where there's maybe a light or flicker or something. Basically, how could do they determine how much they keep, or is that just something natural that happens?
I think it's a lot of everything. So I think it could very much, like in life, happen by happenstance. Sometimes you get lucky in life, so to speak. And I don't think anybody, crosses that threshold and kind of knows what they're doing. Some people may have an educated guess that may work out or pan out, but like they say, you can't take it with you. So you really don't know going forward. At least I don't. I know that. And like as Sean was saying earlier, there may be a certain things that allow you or enable you to take more of that consciousness or energy with you, or allow it to stay more concentrated together to be able to form a consciousness like that still. Whereas if, like, you crossed in a bad way, or you were murdered, or you had an unfinished business, like he was saying as before as well, like if a husband were to die, etc. So those things, if you have a purpose or something traumatic with high emotions behind it, I would imagine if there's a good as cause as any to keep, if anything, together, it would be some kind of grand purpose like that. Also, I mean, it could happen by, like I said, by luck. You could go to the other side and find out you're fully capable of throwing lamps across the room. And, I mean, you could be like, well, I guess we're sticking around. I think if anybody knew the rhyme or reason, we would have heard from them by now.
Right?
Jason, I got a question for you.
Wait, which Jason?
We were talking about the orbs, okay,
yes.
Earlier on. Where do you stand on the manifestation of orbs and how the energy is used in order to create that, or does the energy gather? Does it go away? How does that work?
Okay, so it can do a little of both, all of the above. Excuse the passing lights. My neighbor is I don't know. So no, I think that's a partial manifestation of that energy. Is the best way I could develop a hypothesis around it, and where it is something that still exists in somewhat, even if in a small way, a cohesive form. But at the same time, when it can move in those erratic ways, which are not in any way, shape, or form could be happenstance or such, that it would just, especially when it does interact, like when you say, oh, can you glow brighter? And it does. Those kind of things are some measure of, that energy, that cohesiveness, and somewhat of a level of consciousness sticking around together to work together and retaining somewhat of its former self. Now, that's not to say that the orb you're seeing wasn't Lucy the cat, because I believe if it's possible with us, with our energy, it's possible with the cat and the dog in the house as well. And the cat, while it may be considered a more simple-minded animal, at the same aspect, it does possess consciousness, it does possess emotions and being, and it is that same energy. So with that being said, that orb may be the manifestation that happened that way. So you're calling out to it, and the cat would normally stop and look at you and do a little motion, and then it goes on its merry way, like cats tend to do while they were alive.
Okay.
Very nice. So speaking of energy, we had a comment that says dissipating energy is another word for wasted energy. So it is irrecoverable in any form as far as we know. What's your thoughts about that?
No energy under unified energy theory is wasted energy. It is just not currently being channeled for the purpose that you'd want. So take electricity. If you have electricity that dissipates because of heat or something and not go to the device you're trying to power with that electricity, that is technically considered wasted energy. But it doesn't mean in the grand sense of the universe it is wasted energy. And in unified energy theory, energy exists and it's just a constant ebb and flow. So it goes in heat, it goes in motion, it goes in light, all kind of different ways. And once it flows to that, it flows to something that doesn't have as much energy, and then it's a constant trade. So that energy is still in the universe. It just may be being used in some completely different manner after it is used in one way instead. So the energy that makes up me today, 1,000 years from now, could make up some guy named Dave who flies around on a hoverboard.
Do some Back to the Future, huh?
You never know.
Where do you think the energy goes to, though? I mean,
I think it goes everywhere in a little bit of a way. I mean, you've got static electricity in the air. You've got wind that flows around and pushes, thousands of clouds a minute in the sky. You've got light. You've got, the energy and heat in the earth. You've got the whole universe around us and other people as well. I mean, you breathe in and you breathe out. That energy expands. There's a reason that you can feel when other people are near you, or like was stated earlier as well, like when you think someone's watching you or right next to you, there's a certain energy transfer going on there. Science has actually done studies on this, and there is a lot of semi-quasi validity to that, where they found evidence that people could tell, certain people that could tell when someone was staring at them from behind with a pretty high degree of accuracy. Now, that obviously isn't the case as always, but some people could, and there's no other way to explain that than those people could feel that energy. So those things all, considered, I think that energy just dissipates into the world around us. It may stay some with our loved ones. It may go into the universe around us and sponsor new forms of life to form and new things made out of new energy to be created.
Very nice. Very nice. I like that.
Yeah.
That's it all in a nutshell, I guess.
yeah. Wow.
So here's a science question.
Okay.
This isn't about energy exactly, but how does science explain near-death experience memories from the other side? Has anybody ever thought about that? Like, you got all these people, okay? Might have been in an accident, something happened, had a heart attack, they're dead. They're declared dead. Now, not everybody, but some of these folks will come back and say what they saw. They saw, they saw the light, or they saw just not good things. Is there any scientific explanation for this? Does anybody have any input on that?
I could take that one first if you want.
Sure.
Okay. So as for the seeing the light part, there is a scientific explanation for that. The explanation is that they figured out that, I mean, as much as they could tell, let's be honest, that when you technically see the light, so to speak, that's actually your optical nerve and the way your brain starts to shut down when you die. Okay. And you actually, that's the last thing you see, because your visual acuity, your brain processing behind making those images into something where we actually see, that starts to break down. So you start to not see images and you can only see light or color or etc. And that's kind of like what we see as we go into this light. Now, for really deluxe images, things like that, science thinks that it's very, very vague. They think it could be like part of the hallucinatory factor of going through something traumatic, stress-induced. And that could be something that really, can manifest it in a lot of different ways, but they're definitely not sure on that.
So that's pretty cool about the scene. I didn't know that about the the last thing our brain would see would be the light because it's trying to make an image, but there's nothing to make an image of because it's shutting down.
That is interesting.
That's really cool. Thanks for that bit of information. Absolutely.
I've heard endorphins are released. Massive endorphins are released when you're dying, and it's your body's way of coping with death.
Huh? I didn't know that.
I read
know that at all.
What about the folks that like don't see like a light per se, but they just see just total darkness and like oppression? Like the total opposite of the light. They don't see anything else. It's just black. Like what is that? Another part of the brain, or
that's just how there are differences in how your brain gets shut down. Human beings are such a complex, if you want to quote unquote call it that, a machine that they're so complex, and no two people's brain works the same way. That's what makes us individual. We have individual thoughts, individual emotions, because everything that makes us up is not built in a cookie cutter form. It's not built like just a straight ladder across the board and you plug things in and plug things in there. It's all different. That's why they can't come out with a thing that can read your thoughts, so to speak.
Well, they're working on it, aren't they? I've seen some stuff that they're trying to come up with devices.
But, they're having a hard time. Even Elon Musk can't nail that one down supposedly so far, and he's throwing a lot of money on it. So, that your brain could just shut down in a way, and it also could depend on what happened to you. Different things affect your brain in different ways. So if you had, say, a baseball hit you in the head, you might see light. But if you had, like something happened to you chemically or something like that, your brain may shut down to the point where, all you see is you slowly fade to darkness. And there's different experiences on there. And it also depends on like how you're made as a person and who you are. People see a lot of their flashback of their life, supposedly, before they died. That's a big one. And they actually say that is a coping mechanism in the brain that shows all kind of familiar images and what they call core memories that is kind of like a trauma response. It shows all kind of familiar. It's in like the deep core of your brain. And that's the best thing.
So here's something I've always wondered. This is for everybody on the panel here. So a lot of people that have near-death experience usually end up coming back, and now they have like a special gift, whether it's like telepathy or like psychic abilities, things like that. How does that get triggered? That's got to be like another section of the brain getting energized? I've always wondered that. Like, what's the science behind that particular,
Yeah, I'd like to know about that too, because that happened to me in '83. Whenever I did die, I came back and I started to see things, hear things, and feel things that weren't there. And I really thought I was going. And it was explained to me through some people who work in the metaphysical field that what happened was when I died, my old spirit left and the new one jumped in. Okay. Which, made, I guess, my gifts a little bit higher and stronger. You know what I mean? But that's what happened to me. I started to see people that weren't there.
I see dead people.
What I find it might be a little bit interesting, and I can't back this up. It's just a thought that's in my head. For a lot of people with near-death experiences, imagine that a lot of times that death has something to do with lack of oxygen to the brain at some point, and wouldn't that injure brain cells? So I don't know where I was going with that.
Like, do you mean like injure brain cells to when like you come back, like things are just different? Like you might think you have these abilities? Is that what we're getting at? Something like that?
That wasn't where I was going, but that's an interesting thought.
That is an interesting thought.
But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they do say that you only use like 3% of your brain
Right?
True.
They say if you used like half of it, we'd be flying around the room.
Yeah.
So then maybe
projecting
we
laser
can
beams and
say
stuff.
that some of your brain cells died, so other ones that are more on the psychic side have sprung
Came
in
alive.
to take up. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. See, we figured it out.
It's like they say when a person goes blind, their hearing gets more acute.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm. And their smell too. Their sense of smell becomes acute too.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You smell better.
Oh, jeez, Ross.
I can input on the sense thing. So when you go blind, for instance, you were using that example before. One of the reasons they figured out that your sense of hearing gets better and your sense of smell gets better when you go blind is because when we have all of our senses, sight is obviously the most prominent, probably touch and hearing after that. So when we no longer have, especially a main sense like sight, we focus so much more on those in our brain. Now, an interesting thing about our brain, a lot of people don't realize, is our brain works just like any other muscle, so to speak, in our body. The more we use it, the more we're going to strengthen it, fine tune its agility, and therefore it'll function at higher levels. So when you lose that sense of sight, now your sense of smell, your sense of hearing are working a lot harder. You're relying on them a lot more. You're focusing on them a lot more. And then that makes them stronger and your perceptibility of them a lot greater as well. So you're more agile with those senses by, so quote unquote, working them out.
Did we ever wonder, like Russ was saying, we only use a small percentage of our brain. Do we ever think like it could be true that we would have so much more just energy if we could utilize our whole brain? Like what?
Heck yeah.
Like what would it be like out there?
Well, hold on, Jason. My wife said that I only use a little part of my brain.
Okay. So to back Russ up here, we actually use a lot more than our brain than like 10% overall. We use most of our brain. There are some definite backup cells and everything in there that don't get used most of the time in certain areas, but they're kind of like just backup or overload areas, if you will. We do use most of our brain. We just don't use it all at once. A big handicap with the human brain is actually like you ever tried to pat your head and rub your stomach at the same time and you find out you can't go in opposite directions? That's because your brain can only do so many things at the same time. That's actually one of its big weaknesses. So it's not that we don't use overall more than 10% of our brain. It's that we can't use more than that much at like one period of time without like truly overloading ourselves and it just becoming a jumble that doesn't equate to anything when we try to do things.
Right.
So that's in there. But as the Val was saying as well, there are sections, like I said, cells and certain things that don't usually work together. And if certain things become damaged, and then one of the things with the brain is if an area gets damaged, another part of the brain may pick up the function for that. This happens when people that have had traumatic injuries and they have trouble speaking, and then they end up being able to speak better over time because the damaged area of the brain that was in control of speaking before, another part of the brain adapts over time and then picks up that function, so to speak, and they get it back. So by having different parts of the brain start to work together, maybe that didn't work together before, can make some pretty interesting combinations, because now maybe you're doing two things at once that you couldn't do before. And that can, you start putting blocks together, the tower gets pretty high.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
I am learning a lot of stuff tonight, Jason B.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you guys. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, dude. We'll have you back on again.
I will thank you very much. I think that's the biggest compliment I could get.
All right, sir. Good night.
Thank you very much,
All
guys.
right, brother. Thank you.
Sure.
No problem.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
See you, Jason.
All right. That was
That was
very
interesting,
informative.
dude.
Yeah,
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Yeah, he knows a lot of information. A lot of information.
I could sit down and talk to him all night. just absorb all that. I have to bring a tape recorder in with me, just to, try to decipher, what he says. But that was really it. What fascinated me about the whole thing is when he mentioned about when you die, when you see the light, it's actually your brain trying to focus on something.
Yeah, that was neat.
And there's nothing there. Yeah.
Yeah. That's to me, really that cool. Was like really interesting. Before we go on, I want to thank our sponsor, Carnation, for sponsoring us for this hour. Thank you, Carnation.
Thank you, Carnation.
Thank you, Carnation.
Thank you, Carnation.
So I want to talk a little bit about the the paranormal and the differences between like adults and kids. So a lot of people, like us, Russ, you never feel nothing hardly.
I see a lot for some weird reason.
What you see a lot?
Yeah,
I see things. Ever since I was like 22, I seen that woman stand in the middle of my hallway, and it just changed my life forever. It made me think there's something more to this world than what we know.
Yeah.
Back then, I was didn't care about anything, didn't think about God or life after death till I seen her. And it just made me think, you're not as smart as you think.
What do you guys think about like kids being a lot more susceptible to the paranormal than us as adults? Now, as investigators and paranormal, being part of the group, we're looking for ghosts. We're ghost hunters. We're looking for them. We got the equipment. We open ourselves to the beliefs of spirits and, ghosts all around us. But a lot of times we may not experience anything, but it always seems like little kids are always, the ones more susceptible to it. Like, what's your opinions on that? I mean, is it just because they're so fresh and they don't understand it yet, so they're just more
their mind's not polluted with people's beliefs, so to say. So I think that would be a good piece of equipment for you to take with you, Jason.
Yeah, you take my 2-year-old. Here's something interesting. So
take the boy, put a leash on him.
Well, here's the thing, we have cameras, and I got all this ghost hunting equipment, and every once in a while stuff might act up in the house and we might actually hear it or see it or whatever. But as of recent, my 2-year-old, he's been like waving at somebody, saying hello and bye, and we look, there's nobody there. And it's just fascinating to see the difference between, a very young human compared to an adult. When we're actually looking for it, we can't find it, but then here he is, like, hey, hello, goodbye, and look over your shoulder, waving, and you turn around, there's nobody there. And it makes you wonder, okay, who's here today? And no, I'm not going to take him on investigations, Russ.
Oh man,
we'll get him his own little box. We
man.
can put him in.
He's a little too young
back
for that.
to the little kids. And it's crazy because a lot of the places that we have gone to, and a lot of like the 2-3-year-old, I got a story to tell you about that. We did an investigation on the north side. This was a long time ago, and the daughter was playing in her bedroom, and the mom could not hear her. Okay, so the mom got nervous, and she went upstairs, went into her daughter's bedroom. And her daughter turned around and looked at her and said, "Hi, Mommy. Mommy, I want you to meet my friend Johnny." And Johnny wasn't there. So I think that they're just opened up to everything. You know what I mean? I don't believe that there are bad spirits out there that's going to attack a baby. I think that it's more of a grandma type of thing, great aunt, something like that. A family member that is just like playing with them.
It'll be interesting, Jason, to see, what happens, as your son gets older, starts, being able to communicate more.
Yeah.
What he will communicate to you.
Yeah, I'm pretty pretty curious how that's all going to turn out, especially after, was it like last year or everywhere we went and stuff, lights were flickering and burning out and we'd walk. It was crazy.
Yeah.
There's just so much energy, especially when the two of us were together, so, and he's already seeing, somebody and waving, obviously they're nice, which they better be, or, we'll have to make them evacuate the premises.
You know what you should do, Jason, is pull out like an album, a photo album, and put it in front of him and see if he can point out who it could be.
Yeah. I mean, we have some ideas. I won't,
They say animals too. Animals can sense spirits. Like we had Prudence up, where was that? Conneaut. We had Prudence up there, and she wouldn't go in the one room, and the lady come up, she goes, that's the room they say the murder happened in.
Yeah.
And she went in all the other rooms, but that one, she wouldn't go in that one. Or she wouldn't go on the ballroom floor.
Ain't that crazy? Yeah. She wouldn't even go near it.
Mm-mm.
I mean, but cats are pretty good too.
Cats.
But here's an interesting question. As we're talking about kids, because we know like animals are susceptible, and obviously they can't talk to us or whatever. But there has to be a certain point with a child, whether it's your child or as investigators we know somebody's child's having these things happen. At what point exactly, would we worry about their communication with someone, versus nurture their openness and belief about it? You know what I mean? Like when do we draw a line, it's okay to communicate, or, with, just let them continue to be open and with their beliefs or whatever, because, that young, I feel like they may just be too susceptible, for anything to just waltz right in and, start controlling or something. I'd worry about that. What do you guys think about that?
I don't think, I think they should be nurtured, and if they think they see something, don't discourage them. I watched that show with Chip Coffey when he had the kids on. He was pretty good. He would teach them how to use their ability instead of, because they felt strange, at school and that, because they would see spirits. Kids would make fun of them, and their parents would say, we got to take you to somebody, and that's who they took him to. And he said, no, nurture it and learn how to develop it and use it for good, your power for good.
Dover has an interesting response on that. He says that adults already having determined what they see as reality would find it very hard to accept new forms of input where children have yet to make those determinations. So they would see the world for what it is.
I have a thought on that.
Yes.
Because I don't see, I don't feel. My children do. Okay. I don't, and I'm talking adult children now. How do I want to put that? I want to see. I want to feel. I am entirely open mentally and emotionally to having this happen. So if that statement is true, that means that I should be able to, and I'm not.
Well, do you think that, Val, everybody seems to be different. Some people might feel the emotions of the spiritual world. Some people are just in it for the spiritual reasons. Some people might see things, some might feel things or just believe in it. But, you might not have all those things. You might only have one. Do you think maybe we just need to hone in and find what yours is? Do you think that might be?
I guess it's possible. Sure.
Because I'm sure there's something, but maybe just thinking too hard about like, okay, well, I don't see this, I don't feel this, okay, so maybe that's not your personal, being for the paranormal. Maybe it's one of the other aspects of it. Do you think maybe focusing on something, trying other routes might help you? Like, what do you think about that?
It's always a great thought, and something I should probably try because,
There's not a time, Val, where you're just standing around or sitting around watching TV or something and just feel like cold air, or like just being touched or something like that?
No, I mean, I've had experiences when we've been out investigating where, like the door got pushed into me or my hair got moved but I don't sense anything.
Do you think that subconsciously you might be more on the scientific side of things, like in a like example, like having to see the whole proof first? Do you think that might be a possibility for your situation?
I don't know. I guess it's probable.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe, because we know, you like to focus on debunking and everything of that nature. So I'm wondering, is it possible if you're just actually more scientific than you realize?
Yeah.
And that might be what's actually shutting the door, to other.
That's a good one.
Or that, yeah, I'm somehow closing myself off in some other way.
But you don't know you're doing it.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, your subconscious is probably saying, I think I'd be scared if I saw something.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, see, not that, because, I mean, I've had experiences where I've been walking somewhere at night, and you get that spooked feeling. But I think that's more of like, I felt that was more of an intuition thing than a paranormal thing, like like there's somebody behind a tree looking at me kind of thing. So I don't know.
So while we're speaking about in the evenings and stuff, that's one of the points that I wanted to bring up tonight is for our listeners that may be wondering this question: do hauntings happen just during the day, or do they happen at night, or do they happen around the clock?
I believe around the clock.
My perspective, now this is mine, is it's around the clock, but a lot of people find it easier to investigate at night. Number one, because it's quiet. It's a lot more quiet.
Yeah.
Everything's, calmed down, because you might have spirit activity happening during the day. You have no idea what's going on. You can't hear. You got cars driving by, phones ringing, TVs are on. But, when you could focus in the evening, 10, 11 o'clock, everything, cities are shutting down and everything. And, the big thing also for the nighttime investigating is the creep factor. It's creepy. You're seeing, it's easier to see shadows, like you said, you feel like somebody's watching you as you're walking wherever, and I think a lot that really amplifies the whole experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cemetery at night is a lot different than a cemetery in the day.
Oh yeah, that's
for sure.
Even though it's all the same.
Absolutely. But plus also at nighttime, your senses, they do, become a lot more stronger,
Yeah.
Let's see, Nina has a question. Why do investigators turn out lights to obtain evidence?
I have a couple of theories on that one.
Like there.
To heighten your senses?
That's one of them. The heighten your senses, and for me personally, it's because of equipment being used.
Yeah.
We have cameras with infrared capabilities and full spectrum capabilities that I feel when you use the proper lights, the IR lights and full spectrum lights with these cameras, when the lights are out, you could see more for what's actually there rather than lights being on and bleeding into the images and maybe causing, more of a distortion from, what would normally be picked up.
And I always figured the spirits don't know IR technology, so they'll come out and walk in front of you thinking you can't see them.
Oh, that's a good one, Russ.
That's a good
I never
point,
thought of
Russ.
that.
Yeah, that's a real good point there. I don't
I'm
know.
here all night.
Well,
Any
thanks,
more
Russ.
words of wisdom, Russell? Any more words of wisdom?
That's about it. I'm about out now. No. I think the darkness, when you can't see anything, but then you look through your viewfinder and you can see with the the IR camera. It just gives you a sense of maybe I can see you, but you can't see me. Because I always ask the spirits, can you see us? Because we can't see you. And so far they haven't come out and materialized, but they've knocked on things, and
You know, something interesting talking about IRs. Every time I watch, ghost shows on TV or whatever, and they're using IRs, have you guys ever noticed that the room is still really dark, except for like a focused point of where the infrared light is, and then
Yeah.
you'll see more shadows or whatever. Now, when we're investigating and I'm using IR lights, mine, really good quality ones, and they're really bright. So when you're in a completely dark room, it looks like, if the lights were on, that's how bright they are. I'm kind of wondering, does that play a factor in the possible evidence, in the possibly capturing stuff, because it's so bright now compared to maybe more dark.
yeah,
It's just something I've been wondering, if you guys got any input on that, possibilities. Like I'm trying all kinds of different things, and I'm just, that one's been boggling my mind for a while.
I know I like your full spectrum camera. I mean, to me, that's the ultimate there. You can put that on the video, right?
Yeah, it's got video.
I mean, I'd try that next time when we go out. Just put it on video and see what you get, because you do pick up some good stuff on that camera.
yeah. I like video. I don't like still pictures, except the one Val had, because a still picture, you could see a face like in a window, but unless that face moves, a lot of people are skeptical about that, and they say that's matrixing,
And the whole
pareidolia.
Thank you.
Here, son, that's a new word. That's a new word for me tonight.
Pareidolia.
Well, that's when you see faces in bushes
Clouds.
and windows and clouds and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like the World Trade Center when they rammed it, they seen the face of Lucifer coming out in the smoke on the one picture. I don't know if anybody's ever seen. Well,
I know what you're talking about. I've seen that.
It's what people make that out to be, because they say the human mind wants to put a face on everything.
So Dover has a question here.
Yeah.
He says,
interesting.
one thing he has never seen is a video of a shadow figure or an apparition outside during the day. Do you think it is because it is just harder to see in the daylight?
I would think so.
I think it's because a lot of times you need the flash of a camera to actually bounce off of the energy that the apparition or orb is in order to see it. So if you don't have that reflection, then you can't see the energy.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
That makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense, sir.
Yeah, then once again, that might go back to why most, ghost hunters like to investigate at night, because we're using flashes or IRs or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You can see those shadows when, the lights would bounce back off the energy.
Yeah. I mean, there are plenty of people, I'm sure we've all seen videos of, a phone getting knocked off of a table and it's complete day, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I just watched that one. The guy in the hotel.
Yeah, him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it does happen during the day. You're just not, I just don't think you can see the actual spirit, just the results of,
Right.
The guy in the hotel. Yeah. So what would you say, out of all the equipment that's out there and that we, collectively have and use, like what's each of you's favorite, piece of equipment to use and review or whatever? Is there any particular piece, or it's just like, I just want to use this one today, or you were like, yes, this is the one for me?
I like using the trail cams, or what they call them, static cams. And Russ told me about the video part on the static cams, and I do that now, and it's a hell of a lot better than just still pictures, so I enjoy looking at them.
Russ, you got a favorite piece of gear you like to use?
What I like, and I never really got I only got a couple good evidence with EVP recorder.
Okay.
I love to hear that there's a voice there, and I know there was nobody else speaking. Like that was up Hillview Manor when I was talking to Jimmy up in
You want
the
to tell that story?
third floor. Yeah,
You
it
wanna
was
tell
up
that
there.
story?
I got a story about Hillview too, so go ahead.
Everybody
Russ.
was down eating pizza, and I said, I'm going to go out on my own. And I went up to the third floor. I was sitting up there, and I said, Jimmy, are you here? And I said, I just come up to see you. And then I left, and the next day or 2 days later, I'm listening to my EVP recorder, and you hear plain as day, F you. And I know nobody was with me. Somebody said he was saying vacuum. Tie my shoe. That was it. Tie my shoe. And I said, no, that's not what he said.
No.
Because they said there was a guy there that he was a real jokester, and he used to go down and like steal TVs off people and take it up to his room. And he had like 5 TVs in the one room.
Jeez. So an interesting story about Hillview. I forget when we were there. What, a few years ago? I think the last time we were there. So, back then, I was taking EVPs and running K2 and stuff, and I'll never forget it. It was witching hour, and I forget who was all. We were all upstairs, in that hall that with the bathroom that the guy hung himself in or whatever a long time ago. Well, that's also the hall that people have seen this creature they call the creeper. Mm-hmm. It kind of like pokes out from one room and it'll dart across the hall into another room, and it kind of like crab walks kind of thing. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I remember when we were there, some of us actually saw that, and it scared the jeebies out of a few people. And
did it scare you?
Well, I caught like the very tail end of it because I was like, I was taking pictures over here, taking pictures over there. But something very interesting about this is why I'm bringing it up, is a couple months ago, there's a few paranormal groups, on Facebook that I'm in, just see what's the latest gear and stories and stuff. And there was a group that was on there talking about how they were just at the Hillview Manor recently, and they described this creeper creature the same thing as what we saw.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, oh, wow. So this is really cool. So this is, legit. So I wrote them a message, and we were just comparing, back and forth. It's just like how amazing it was. A few years ago we saw it, and then, other groups saw it. And then recently Hillview was on one of the paranormal shows on television, and even the host, they were talking about it, and the guy that they were interviewing was like, yeah, there's this creeper creature, and he described it the same too. So hopefully, we could go back there, especially with all the gear we have now and all the high-tech cameras, and run all that, especially in that hallway. Maybe we can actually catch them.
That'd be cool.
Like that would be
with the creeper thing, is it a human spirit, or what do you think it could possibility be, or what are people saying what it could be?
Watch that.
That's a lot of I don't knows.
They
Nobody
said
really knows.
that they believe that Jimmy's room is where it is, and it makes itself into whatever it thinks will scare you.
Oh, okay.
That was just
what kind of force is that?
I think
What
Jack Osborne was there.
Yeah, but like, what does that make that creature? Does that mean it's like a more demonic? Is it like a demon? Or is it just an angry entity that's shapeshifter? Like, what is it?
I don't know. We're gonna have to go find out.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go find out. This is why we're here,
and that is why we're here. And the good one was the hallway by the nurses' station, where the lady said women mostly get their hair pulled, and Janice was walking down, my wife, and pulled her hair. She thought there was a bat in her hair because we was seeing a bat fly around.
Speaking of bats, so we had just got there. I'll never forget this. We just got there and got finished with our tour. And as soon as they said, okay, you guys are on your own, I don't know if anybody remember, I took off. I was like, I'm excited.
Yeah.
So I'm running down the hall, and as soon as I
Skipping.
cut a right, there was a bat flying right at my face. I
Yeah.
had no idea
wow.
what it was. I screamed at the top of my lungs and took off, running down the hall. Everyone's laughing at me, like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I don't know what that was."
Yeah, well, that was a good time up there. I like that place.
That's a good.
I always
yeah,
liked Bellevue.
Yeah, definitely have to get back. So
Yeah.
there's another place I recently seen on another show called the Brushy Mountain Penitentiary down in
Yeah.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you've seen anything about that. So it was built in this valley of mountains. There's one way in and one way out, and this is where they took like the bad of the bad. And an interesting fact is they purposely built this prison in the shape of an upside down cross. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
Wow.
They did this to send a message to all the inmates to say that pretty much they're not worthy. So could you imagine being an inmate or even working there in a literal upside down cross because they wanted to send a message that, you know, people aren't worthy?
That's crazy.
That-
Can you
that's pretty crazy.
investigate down there?
Yeah, I actually looked into it. They do 7 days a week. I forget what the price is, but it's from I think like 9 to 4 or something like that. But some other cool things about that place, well, not cool things, but what they call the hole. You know, when somebody's real bad, they got to throw them in a hole for a couple days or whatever. We found out some information that sometimes they would pretty much hang the people by their thumbs as a form of torture while they're in the hole. They would give them 2 5-gallon buckets. One would have water and one would be other for use the bathroom. And there's absolutely zero light. Now this is interesting because, you know, after a couple of days, a lot of people, you know, they started behaving themselves, but the ones that ended up being down there for several months, a lot of them went blind
Wow.
because it was so dark down there and absolutely no light. Like I couldn't even imagine being in an area like that.
Oh.
You know, but I feel like there's a lot to be investigated down there, and we definitely need to put that on our bucket list.
Mm-hmm.
You
I'm
know,
calling shenanigans on the upside down cross thing.
look it up.
Oh, how do
it
you
up.
tell it's upside down?
Look at it.
They literally,
It's literally an upside down cross.
yeah,
Yes.
standing up. Or are we talking about it's like in a plus sign laying on
No.
the ground?
No, you got the mountains in the back, and the road that leads in. There's only one road in and one road that's the same road. The front entrance would be like the top of the cross, so it's upside down. Check it out. You'll have to look it up.
Because
The
you know
Brushy
the whole
Mountain.
north-south thing. It's just it's not relative. North is only up because that's how they made the map.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Hey, I don't know. I'm just going by what research and people
Development.
down there have talked about. So, I mean, look at it.
Look at it.
Look
Yeah.
it up.
Look it up. Google is your friend.
So, you guys, what was your favorite place that you investigated?
Neatest place I've ever been was at the Greyfriars Cemetery in Scotland.
Oh, really?
That was what we sort of investigated, but just to see, over here you don't see graves that are 200-300 years old, and it was very spooky and it was different. And we was in there sort of at dusk, and it was kind of spooky.
Did they, were they open up all night?
No, they locked it at I believe like dusk. They
Did you
locked
sneak
it up.
in? Did you sneak in?
No, we were there, and then it started getting dusk, and everybody left, and we went to the what was it? Greyfriars Kirk. That's what they called it. And then me and Janice went over to the I can't remember not the ovens. It was it's where they walled the people up. Queen Anne's Close. That's what it was called.
Mm-hmm.
Where they walled
Mary
people
King's
up.
Close. Mary King's Close. That's what it was.
Did you get walled up over there, Russ?
No, but it's spooky being in there in the middle of the day. It's pitch black, but they have a couple 40 watt light bulbs. It's the spookiest place I've ever been in.
Do they let you take pictures in there?
Yeah. I still got it. We got a whole album full of all the pictures of Scotland, Loch Ness. We went all over.
Did you see Nessie?
Yeah, I seen her.
You seen Nessie?
Yeah,
swimming around.
right after. That's why they call it Scotland. They got a lot of Scotch.
Oh,
I wanted to go to the tape factory, but it was closed.
Isn't there a bar right on the lake here?
There's a bunch of bars right on the lake. There is.
Val, what would be your favorite investigation? From your experience.
I have a couple, but they were private homes. But I think Prospect.
Yeah.
I had a lot of interesting things happen at Prospect.
Really?
And that was a long time ago. That was, yeah.
Because when we were there, we had a couple, things happen in only one room of that whole complex, and that was only by the flashlight method, But it was really dead. No pun
We had
intended.
balls
there.
rolling around on the floor on the third floor, and some noises and stuff in the basement area.
And actually see the shadows crossing, because at that time, Val, when we went down there, it was like we would go 1, 2, sometimes 2 days,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what they got going on down there is really doesn't give you enough time to actually do an investigation on it. To me, Prospect is my favorite. The barn where they so-called hung that dude, to me, that's the creepiest place down there, that and the cellar.
Yeah. With your girlfriend.
Yeah.
Her name? I can't remember her name.
Constance.
Oh, jeez.
Long story for another day.
Yeah. Yeah, we
Look
don't have
it
time
up.
for that.
Look it up. How
So
about you?
here's another one. How would you guys say negative energy plays into the paranormal, and why?
I don't
Well,
really go ahead, Russ.
They say that entities can feed off of negative energy, like if it's in a home where people, and we find this out over a couple of our investigations, that people that are the husband and wife are fighting a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It seems the spirits feed off of that. And I know Sean told the people, you got to start getting along. And the woman would say, if we're out of the house, it's fine. We get along great, but as soon as we get in that house, and we figured it was the whatever energy was there was making them fight.
Yeah.
So,
Now, do we think that negative energy will scare a lot of spirits off or draw them in more?
I think they feed off it.
They feed
Now,
off
is
these
it
days.
more for negative or positive energy? Like what happens? Like what do you think really happens between the two? Like, say you got this place that's really positive, what are those spirits going to do? And compared to if it's really negative, who's going to be feeding off of that?
Yeah, well, you figure like a prison.
Right.
They always say they're haunted because of all the death and the murders and the fighting and the brutality that's going on there. They think that's what makes these spirits they're still around.
Yeah, because like we were talking earlier, the energy, some of it may go back out in the universe, or some of it might just linger. And like you're saying, prisons, there was so much bad stuff that happened. The bits of energy that are left are obviously not going to be happy.
Right. In mental institutions.
Yeah.
But do we think, like, on the positive side of things, do we think those spirits are going to, act up a little bit to play games, or do we think that more of the activity that we basically hunt down is just from the negative side?
Well, what I see on that with the negative energy, you have your positive, the happy ghosts that are in the house, right? And then, say, like Russ was saying, with the husband and wife fighting, bringing out that negative. But I think that the positive ghosts, they just go hide somewhere else and just let the negative energy just hang around.
Yeah.
So with the
negative energy tends to be more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they say that people in general tend to not remember the good things that happen to them, but they always remember the bad things that happen to them.
True.
And they'll remember those bad things, you know, and they keep bringing it up again and again, and it lends power to the negativity, I think.
So do we think with the negative energies, like what came first? Are there negative spirits that created the negative energy that's there, or was the negative energy created, you know, by whoever's there, and then the spirits just come in to feed off of it?
Yes.
Like what started first, like the chicken or the egg, basically?
Well, I would have to say, back if the Bible's true, Adam and Eve. That what started the negative energy.
And I think
This is
God's
2023,
always
Sean. We're
said,
talking about houses and stuff.
Well, no, you said where does it actually start at? Where it started from?
Well, no, I'm saying,
It would have started with
for
Lucifer
example,
up in heaven.
we're going to somebody's house, right? Okay, you know the house, you know